All right. Hello, guys. Salt here. Today we're going to be looking at MOA, the MOA Companion, how to build him out, and what kind of buffs he can give you. So, ever since the pet rework, there are a lot more viable companions in the game. It's not just simply Panzervolpaphyla and Smedikavat. There are a lot of viable Steel Path pets. And it's because all of them now, when they're dead, they still have their vacuum and they still have their animal instincts working. So they don't lose that. And they come back to life. So you don't have to, if you're doing, a 4 hour endurance run, you don't have to worry if your pet dies, and you don't have to reset, which was kind of like the annoying thing and the reason you wouldn't run some pets before. So let's get into the MOA. The MOA kind of went from being um, like a joke pet to being one of the best Warframe companions in the game. So, what does the MOA do for you? So the MOA is going to provide you a 1.2 times crit damage multiplier, and he's also going to give you 60% fire rate. So, and this is for any weapon you use. I don't believe the fire rate works on melee, though, so just keep that in mind. I don't believe the fire rate works on melee. When we get into the build and we look at that mod, I'm pretty sure it's fire rate and it's not attack speed. So, 1.2 times crit damage multiplier and 60% fire rate on whatever weapon you want to use. If it's a secondary, it's secondary. If it's primary, it's primary. It doesn't matter. Just whatever. So, let's get into it here. Um, so, the important mods. I have a lot of mods on here, and I'll go through all of the mods. But the very, very important mods on the MOA and what makes the MOA is going to be 3 different mods. It's going to be Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond, and then finally Blast Shield. These are the 3 mods that make the MOA, especially Blast Shield. Because if you notice, Blast Shield is a MOA specific mod. Well, Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond are not MOA specific. You can put them on anything. But there's a reason that, especially Reinforced Bond, Tenacious Bond works on a lot of other companions, but especially Reinforced Bond, the one that gives you 60% fire rate, there is a reason why this is top tier on the MOA specifically. Okay, so let us get into the build. So we have our first 3 slots are going to be our survivability slots. On a lot of Sentinels and pets, we actually don't use all 3. We usually use Link Vitality, Link Fiber, or Link Redirection and Link Vitality. We don't typically use all 3 of them. Now on the MOA, you are going to use all 3 of them. Sometimes. There are like weird Warframes that would only use 2 of them, like Hildren, who's a shield frame, so you wouldn't need Link Fiber. But most Warframes, except for like Hildren or Shield Harrow, are going to use all 3. Now, let's read Reinforced Bond here, because this is why we need to use Link Redirection on this pet. If the companion exceeds 1200 max shields or overshields, then your fire rate is increased by 60%. And then you also get another effect. This isn't really too important. When you reload, you also restore 150 overshields to your companion. That's nice. We don't really care about the second effect. It's just a little added bonus, whatever. So if your companion exceeds 1200 shields or overshields, you're going to get 60 fire rate. That goes on any weapon you have, whether that's the primary, secondary, doesn't matter. So that's why we're using Link Redirection, because we need shields. We need shields to make sure we're at a good baseline. We're at a good baseline for Reinforced Bond to work. A lot of times, Link Redirection is not enough, though. A lot of times, like certain Warframes, they they don't have enough base shields, and so link redirection is sometimes not enough. You can also use regular calculated redirection. Sometimes this is not enough either. Let me see. Actually, let me put on calculated. Oh, I guess yeah. Okay, so calculated redirection would boost him over 1200, but as soon as he takes like one shot of damage, it's going to be under 1200, and you'll no longer be at 60% fire rate. So now we get into the reason why the MOA is the best for activating reinforced bond. And that's going to be because of his precept mod, Blast Shield. So this is on a 7-second cooldown. And every 7 seconds, he's going to give himself 3,000 overshield. He also does like a little effect here. He leaps at an enemy and he, deals a little bit of kind of pitiful damage and he knocks down enemies. Whatever. But it resets your overshield and it gives you 3,000 overshield. So he can keep himself topped off on shields and overshields. Most other Sentinels cannot do this. I mean, if you're using like a pet and you use link redirection and you're playing Hildren, maybe you can keep him at over 1200 shields. But even on Hildren, I would probably still suggest the MOA because the MOA is going to ensure that he is over 1200 shields almost all the time. So that 60% fire rate is going to be active almost all the time on the MOA. And that's why the MOA secures himself as a top-tier Steel Path pick nowadays because of Blast Shield specifically. If the MOA did not have Blast Shield, then any pet could use these two. So the MOA would just continue to be a joke pet and you wouldn't really use him. But because of Blast Shield, he now secures himself as one of the best Steel Path Endurance pets. So, okay. So we went over the 3 mods here, the link mods. If you're playing like Hildren, for instance, you can get rid of Link Fiber and you would have an extra mod slot because Hildren doesn't really care about armor. She just uses shields and vitality. But like every other Warframe, maybe Shield Harrow, you would take off Fiber too. But every other Warframe would use all 3 of these. As we talked about in a few other videos, you have to test around on your Warframes and see exactly what is better. Is the Link mod better or is the regular mod better? So for instance, I'm playing Titania right now. Now I have a specific Titania MOA build. Now if I look at this build here, Link Vitality is better on Titania, but regular Metal Fiber and regular Calculator Redirection are better. If I tried to use the Link Fiber and Link Redirection, I would actually have less stats. So it's important, like the Warframe you're using, you just check. You see if the Link is better or if the regular is better. Tenacious Bond is going to give us a 1.2 times crit damage multiplier as long as our Warframe weapon, or not Warframe weapon, I'm sorry, as long as our Sentinel, or in this case the MOA weapon, is over a 50% crit chance. That's going to be important. We'll get into that again in a little bit once we're done going over the mods. Just keep that in mind, that our MOA weapon has to have an over 50% crit chance for us on our Warframe to get the 1.2 times crit damage multiplier. All right, we went over Reinforced Bond already. This is the one that gives us 60% fire rate. Primed Animal Instincts and Vacuum go on every single pet, no matter what. You always use Primed Animal Instincts and Vacuum. Vacuum is going to get your loot for you, and Primed Animal Instincts is going to give you loot radar and enemy radar. Always use those two on every pet. I'm going to skip Manifold Bond. I'm going to come back to this because this is the flex slot. Blast Shield we went over already. This is going to maintain 3,000 plus shields on your MOA, making sure that Reinforced Bond works all the time. And then finally, Guardian in this slot here. Guardian is just a strong preset mod. There's not really anything else to it. It's just that it will insta restore your shields when you hit 0. So very powerful mod for robotic pets, and that's why we're using it. Keep in mind, if you're using Nidus or Inaros, there's no reason to use Guardian because you don't have shields. So you could switch it. You would have a free mod slot. You might want to use like Meta Pet Array or Meta, I forgot what it's called exactly. Let me see here. Medi-Ray. So instead of increasing your shields back up to 100%, Medi-Ray is going to heal your health by a little bit. So if you're using like a Naros or Nidus, you could just switch that to Medi-Ray. And it's the same polarity. You would just go, you just plop it right over it. Okay, let's go back to the Manifold Bond slot. This is the Flex slot. And let me pull up some bond mods here. Okay, so Manifold Bond is amazing on a lot of Sentinels and a lot of other robotic companions. It allows your precept abilities to put on the statuses on your weapon, on your pet's weapon, onto enemies. Now, in this case, we don't have offensive precept abilities. We have Blast Shield, which is not going to do that, and we have Guardian, which is not going to do that. So the entire first effect from Manifold Bond is not taken into account. So that's why on the MOA, Manifold Bond is not necessarily as strong as it usually is. It's more of like a flex slot. Now, what we are going to take in effect with Manifold Bond is the second half of it, where killing enemies with 3 or more unique status effects reduces companion ability cooldowns by 3 seconds. So, usually when Manifold Bond is at its full strength and it's applying like the statuses from the Sentinel weapon onto things, like everything you kill is going to have 3 or more statuses. But on the MOA, I mean, even like a basic weapon that's not even a full status weapon, a lot of times you're still going to be killing things with 3 or more statuses. Not all the time, but once in a while. And that once in a while is going to turn Blast Shield from a 7-second cooldown to a 4-second cooldown. So frequently, when you're using Manifold Bond, frequently is in almost every time, unless you're using like a crazy crit weapon that has 0 statuses. But like that's very niche. I can't even think of a weapon off the top of my head that's like that. Most weapons that are even crit based have like IPS stats. Like you're still going to get kills on 3+ status enemies sometimes. So yeah. So Blast Shield is going to go from a 7-second cooldown to a 4-second cooldown. And so even if your MOA is taking heavy fire for some reason, he is almost always going, like we were already talking about how the 60% is almost always at full effect. It's almost always up. If he's taking really heavy fire, it may go down for a little bit until he recasts Blast Shield. Well, if you're using Manifold Bond, that almost never happens at all. You almost do have 100% uptime on 60% fire rate. And so that's why I think Manifold Bond is good. It's a flex slot, and let's go over a few other options for this slot here. The other option would be Mystic Bond. Now, Mystic Bond is another one that usually combo wombos with Manifold Bond. The unfortunate thing is that Manifold Bond doesn't work too well on MOAs himself, on this one specifically, because we don't really have offensive precepts. And also, MOAs like to use all 3 of the survivability mods, and so we don't have an extra mod slot to put Mystic Bond with Manifold Bond either. But, so let's just look at Mystic Bond by itself. So Mystic Bond by itself, every time your pet uses a precept mod, a precept ability, so that's going to be Blast Shield or Vacuum, or not Vacuum, I'm sorry, Blast Shield or Guardian. Every 5 times that happens, you're going to be able to cast an ability for free. So, Blast Shield is going to have a 7-second cooldown, which means, like, let's just assume that Guardian doesn't proc, and we're only going to be looking at Blast Shield here. So, a 7-second cooldown. He's going to have to cast it 5 times for a free ability. That means every 35 seconds, you're going to get an ability for free to cast. Now, that ability can be worth 50 energy. It can be worth 150 energy. It doesn't really matter. So every 35 seconds, you're going to get to cast an ability for free. So Mystic Bond will help you a little bit on, like, energy, maybe. I mean, it's not great. It's like once every 35 seconds you get an ability for free. It's okay. It's an option. I actually like Manifold Bond a lot better than Mystic Bond, but I just wanted to show that Mystic Bond is an option there. And I think those are the 2 best options for that slot. I'm going to stick with Manifold Bond because I want my Blast Shield to have a 4-second cooldown instead of a 7. And Manifold Bond is going to make it more often that Blast Shield will have that 4-second cooldown. In fact, sometimes it'll have a 1 second cooldown, but he takes some time to actually cast Splash Shield, so I don't think he's going to cast it that quickly. But even a 4 second cooldown is fine, though. Okay, so that is the build for the MOA. Let me look at the weapon next. And this is going to be important to go over. Let me go into the build one more time, because remember we were talking about Tenacious Bond. His weapon needs to have a critical chance over 50% for your Warframe weapons to get a 1.2 times crit damage multiplier. So we need a weapon on the pet with over 50% crit chance. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. We get into the weapons, because people are probably like, why the hell are you using the Volklock? It's complete doo-doo. And that is true. It is complete doo-doo, and I will explain why we're using the Volklock. It's because only 2 Sentinel weapons can achieve over a 50% crit chance without a Riven. And that's going to be the Volklock and the Volcax. They are both absolute doo-doo tier, and you can pick whatever flavor of doo-doo you like. I like the Volklock, but they are both absolutely friggin' horrible. Now, if you had a Riven for the Prime Laser Rifle, the Death Machine Rifle, or the Burst Laser Rifle, you could achieve over a 50% crit chance with a Riven and with the regular crit chance mod as well. So you could use a more powerful weapon than just the Volklock or the Volcax. You could use the Burst Laser Rifle Prime, which still isn't that great, but it's a lot better than these two. The Death Machine Rifle Prime, again, not that great, but it's a lot better than those two. And the Prime Laser Rifle, same thing. It's not that great, but it's a lot better than the other two. But without a Riven, you're kind of stuck between the Volklock and the Volcax. I'm going to pick the Volklock. So let's get into the Volklock build here. How do you make a doo-doo weapon at least helpful? Like that's what we're going for. This is an absolute garbage weapon. It's not going to be doing damage. How do we make this thing even helpful to us? So if you look at the Volklock, it's fire rate. Now this is with 4 fire rate mods. With 4 fire rate mods, its fire rate is 1 shot every 2 seconds. So extremely low fire rate, and that's why we go with 4 fire rate mods. Without the 4 fire rate mods, I believe it shoots once every 6 seconds. Let me see here. Let me see if I have a blank config. 0.15. I don't even know the math on that. It's very, very slow. So with our config here, we're going to put all 4 fire rate mods. One of these is a login reward, so you might only have 3, and that's okay. But if you have Prime Shred, put Prime Shred on as well. Actually, you know what? Put regular Shred. Yeah, if you if you don't have Prime Shred, put regular Shred. Then you have your 4 fire rate mods there. We need to have Point Strike. Point Strike is what is going to increase us over that 50% crit chance, so that Tenacious Bond becomes activated. So Point Strike is absolutely necessary. And now we have to think, okay, how do we make an absolute doo-doo weapon at least helpful? And my thought and my answer is going to be radiation. Okay, the weapon itself is not going to do damage. So what can I do? What can I do? I can maybe put viral on it, and I can let him spread viral, but he only shoots once every 2 seconds. That's going to be like a viral proc every 2 seconds, and it might not even be that because the status chance is kind of low. So I think the best way to make the Volklock at least helpful to you is to put radiated reload, which is going to give you radiation. And what that's going to do is the few times your things hit and it applies a status effect, enemies are just going to start shooting at each other. That's the best way to make the Volklock helpful to you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put radiated reload on. I'm also going to put rifle aptitude on, which is going to increase the status chance to make it more of a chance to apply that radiation proc, because it doesn't have the best status chance either. So even with rifle aptitude, it's only at 47%. And then I'm going to put split chamber on to add more multi-shot. That way there's more bullets, more chance to apply those radiation procs. So that is my thought process on making the Volklock at least helpful. It's never going to be good. It's never going to be one-shotting things. It's absolute garbage, but this will make it helpful to you. and you still get that over 50% chance to activate Tenacious Bond on your Warframe. So, the MOA, the Volklock. Now, I also wanted to go over a specific, I don't know if I really should have did it in this video or if I should have did it in a Titania specific video, but I'm just going to show it anyway because I feel like it. So one of the really, really powerful things about the MOA is having to do with Titania. So when Titania goes into her pixie form, her pet just goes away. Her pet goes away. The pet can no longer cast preset mods. The pet can't. The pet really can't do anything once you're in pixie mode. But you get to snapshot the pet's like stats, kind of. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. So your pet will cast Blast Shield. He'll give himself a bunch of shields, and then you go into pixie mode. And while you're in pixie mode, the entire time, it could be 4 hours later into pixie mode, you haven't even seen your pet for 4 hours, you will have 60% fire rate, 1.2 times crit damage multiplier, and that's pretty much it. A lot of the other things do not get affected while you're in pixie mode. But, you know, there's not a lot of good pets for Titania because of that. Vaska Kavat's another one that's decent for Titania because if she dies, it can revive her. I mean, you can always have your teammates revive you too. And that's why I think the MOA is actually the best for Titania. Because you get those effects. You get, like, you almost get the entire, like, reason for bringing a MOA on Titania, who usually doesn't get to use pets, which is just friggin' amazing. Now, on Titania specifically, the build doesn't change too much, but it changes a little bit. So, let's look here. So, Link Vitality is going to be better than regular Vitality. Metal Fiber is going to be better than Link. Calculated Redirection is going to be better than Link. We keep on Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond. We keep on Blast Shield. We keep on Primed Animal Instincts and Vacuum. And that leaves us Mediray and Guardian. Your pet, while you're in pixie mode, will not cast Guardian or Mediray. These will not get cast while you're in pixie mode. But Titania is a setup frame, meaning that she has to jump through a lot of hoops to increase the strength of her pixie form before she actually presses her 4 button. If you just get into the mission and press 4, you're not going to get the full effect of your pixie form. I probably should do like a video on Titania. But Titania is a setup frame. You have to jump through a lot of hoops, and while you're jumping through those hoops, before you're actually in pixie form, you're very vulnerable. And so Mediray and Guardian kind of help while you're doing your setup before you go into pixie form. I went through so many of these mods, like seeing if there was anything that was also helpful while you were in pixie form, and there's not really much. I had on Restorative Bond for a long time, and then I did research on it and found out I was completely wrong and it did not work. The other thing I was testing, and it was a absolute nightmare to test, was Loyal Companion. I was trying to see if you got the 75% damage reduction while you were in pixie form, and the sample size for testing was small. It was like maybe 5 times I got to test this, because most of the time I was just getting killed, because Titania, once you stop moving and like once you're trying to get shot, like she'll die pretty quickly. And so I only had like a sample size of 5. It did not work while I was in pixie form. It did work pretty consistently when I was not in pixie form. So I believe Loyal Companion just straight up does not work if you're in pixie form. I could be wrong on that. I didn't have the best sample size to test. If I'm wrong, please tell me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure Loyal Companion does not work. If it does work, you would absolutely like plop it over Mediray, but I don't believe it does work. Okay, so that's the Titania build here. Like I said, I'm going to make a Titania-specific video, so I don't want to really go too crazy into this. Okay, so the regular build, we're going to use Manifold instead. Now, on Titania, you're not going to use Manifold, because he doesn't need to recast Blast Shield. Once he casts Blast Shield, and once you go into Pixie form, he's never going to take damage, because he's just disappeared, he's just gone. And so he doesn't need to recast Blast Shield. So there's no reason to put Manifold Bond on the Titania pet. So you can just go with like a quality of life thing, like Meta Ray, that's just going to heal you while you're trying to do your setup with Titania. Okay. And then, let me see, I think I want to go into just like a mission and just kind of show how Blast Shield looks. I'm going to have to kill things to decrease its cooldown. So, and that's because of Manifold Bond. I have to kill things with 3 or more statuses for Blast Shield to go from a 7-second cooldown to a 4-second cooldown. I'm not going to do a very long mission. I'll probably do less than 5 minutes. I'll probably just abort the mission after a little bit. But I wanted to show that. So let's take our, I'm going to go with Rhino. Because I did my Rhino video yesterday. And I always use my MOA on Rhino because it works really well with shotguns. So make sure I'm not in my Titania set. I am in my Titania set. Let me go back to my regular MOA setup. Get my Volklock. Okie dokie. So let's go in here with Rhino and we're going to show just how Blast Shield works, how it looks. Okay, so my little MOA right now only has 1,096 shields. He doesn't have over 1,200 shields. And so my gun is going to shoot at a lower rate. This is how it's going to shoot. Now, once we get into the mission, oh, actually, he just put it over 1,200 for some reason. So now it goes, now, oh, you know what? I reloaded. It's that effect. When I reload, I give him a little bit of overshield. So now it's going to shoot a lot quicker. So this is what it's going to look like at 60%. A lot quicker. So let's actually spawn enemies so he can actually cast Blast Shield itself. So he's at 1,500 here. As soon as he like notices there's enemies around, there we go. Now he's at 4,600. And every 7 seconds, he's going to refresh that. And because I'm using Manifold Bond, I'm not necessarily trying to put like 3+ statuses. It's just that once in a while, things are going to have 3+ statuses. You don't necessarily even need to like build for it. It's just that naturally, if you use a regular weapon that just has like basic IPS and maybe like viral or something on it, like once in a while you're going to get a kill on an enemy with 3 or more statuses. And that once in a while really only has to happen like once every 7 seconds. And that 7-second cooldown is going to turn into a 4-second cooldown. If that makes sense. Maybe I didn't say that right. So as you see, he's just kind of been chilling at 4,600. Oh, he got hit. He's at 4,500 now. Let's see if he ever gets low here. Let me like try to bring him into a hallway or something where he can get shot at. Maybe I'll go into this hallway and I'll shoot at like one side and I won't shoot at the other side, so the other side could just kind of like shoot at him. Oh, look, he just took some damage. Boop, he right back up. 4,600. So I had probably like a downtime of I don't know, half a second there, where I wasn't at 60%. So I really like MOAs with shotguns because shotguns have really good mods, and it really hurts to put a fire rate mod on your shotgun because you're missing out on some of the really good mods that shotguns get. And so with MOAs being really good now, I can kind of be a shitter and I can have my fire rate mod that I would normally put on my shotgun on my friggin' pet. So I can have my fire rate on my pet, and that'll leave my shotgun to have better mods, and I can do more damage on my shotgun. So, I mean, look at this. The guy has a bunch of statuses. So even without trying to put statuses on things, like you don't have to go like full combo wombo with the MOA and like only use status weapons to try to make the cooldown lower. Like even if you use just a regular ass weapon, even if it's like more crit focused, like, it's still going to have IPS. You're once in a while going to be killing something that has over 3 statuses. Not a big deal. I don't think my MOA has really even gone under, except for that one time for like half a second. And that was about it. Oh, he just took a big hit, but he's still over 1,200. Oh, he's at 1,200 exactly. Let's see. Oh, he's got himself back up to 46. So we didn't actually have any downtime there, but he took about 3 seconds for him to apply to get on himself. So he went down to 1400, and then he just recasted it on himself. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show off. So I'm gonna abort here. And that's really it for the MOA build. There's not really a reason for me to go over the build again because the companion videos are kind of shorter. The one thing I did want to say, though, is I did a lot of testing with some of the other MOA mods, and I just wanted to talk about them. That way people don't think I'm missing something. Let me write in MOA. Because, you know, this video is just, it's all about MOAs. What are MOAs good at? Like, is there anything else they're good at? And these are all the MOA mods in the game. And there are 2 other MOA mods that are okay. I don't think they're worth actually making a build on, but I just wanted to go over them anyway. It's going to be Shockwave Actuators and Whiplash Mine. And typically, you're not going to use these together. You're either going to make a build with Shockwave Actuators or you're going to make a build with Whiplash Mine. Now, Whiplash Mine is going to put a tether down, and it's going to tether enemies, and it's going to kind of like group them up, and it seems really good. The only thing is the MOA is not a sentinel, so the MOA gets to kind of like run around you, and sometimes he's like a little bit out there, and so he's going to be tethering things in weird places that sometimes it's more of a hindrance than it's actually helpful. So I tried Whiplash Mine. I tried doing the whole like combo wombo where he gets to spam it. Like I used Manifold with like offensive preset mods. Well, this would be, but I didn't like it. It was a little bit weird. He gets to run around, and so things aren't necessarily getting tethered in front of you. Sometimes they're getting tethered like to the right behind a door somewhere that you don't even see. So I didn't like it, but it is an option. I mean, I think it's a weak option, but it's an option. The other one is Shockwave Actuators. And this one, he knocks down enemies. Again, the MOA is not a sentinel. He doesn't just sit over your shoulder. He gets to run around. And so sometimes he's like shockwaving at like a single enemy to the right, behind a door somewhere. Like he's not necessarily shockwaving groups of enemies that like would be the best shockwave. He's just kind of running around doing his own thing. Now, both Whiplash Mine and Shockwave Actuators, whatever you decide to make a build for, if you do decide to use these, you have to really do the whole combo wombo where your guy can spam these, because these are going to have internal cooldowns. So just using Shockwave Actuators is not good enough for him to like, I don't know exactly what the internal cooldown is, but like let's just say it's 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it is. It's not good enough. Like him casting Shockwave Actuators once every 7 seconds is not good enough. If you're going to make a Shockwave Actuator build, he should be looking like a friggin' thumper, just casting, you know, Shockwave over and over again and perma stunning enemies. So you need to use the combo wombo. But even with the combo wombo, it's not really that good just because he gets to run around. And it's the same thing for Whiplash Mine. You know, you would use the combo where he gets to spam this. You kind of don't have to use the internal cooldown anymore. But it's not really that great because, again, he gets to run around. He gets to choose where he does the mines. Sometimes it's in weird places. It's not really the best. So I just wanted to kind of go over those two because they are an option. They're not horrible. Some of these other ones are pretty horrible. Like Stasis Field is not great. Security Override's kind of memey. These two are okay. They're not horrible. They're just not great. So that is the MOA build. He is my favorite little companion in the game for a lot of Warframes. Not for everyone, but especially Warframes that use shotguns. Oh my goodness, I love that 60% fire rate. I love not having to use a fire rate mod on my shotguns. And that's why I love my MOA. If you like the video, give it a like. And I think we're almost at 500 people. I think we're almost at 500 subscribers on YouTube. I think we're at like 497 last I checked. So I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for the support. And I hope you guys have a good day. Take care. Bye.